between 2001 and 2007, commercial banks alone, not investment houses, just commercial banks alone, made some $700 billion in profit, a lot of money. Now, as a result of the greed, recklessness, perhaps illegal behavior on the part of a relatively, of Wall Street, they are coming to the taxpayers for huge bailouts, and we have no idea how much that's going to end up costing. Very simple question. The average guy goes out and he has a lot of luck, he wins the lottery, makes a lot of money, puts the money in the bank. Bad times come, says, well, good news. I won the lottery, I have a lot of money, I'll pay off my debts. These guys made unbelievable sums of money. Then through their greed and recklessness, they created a terrible crisis, and now we have to bail them out. Where did all their profits go?
As you know, Senator, the banks have paid out profits in the form of dividend payments to shareholders.
Yep.
They've paid salaries to managers.
Yep.
That money is not directly recoverable legally, but I certainly understand the frustration that the American people feel at this situation.
Yeah, they sure do. In other words, some people became incredibly rich, and then when things got bad, it's the average Joe who has to bail them out. And somehow or another we have to deal with that. And that is why, by the way, in terms of the first bailout, I voted against it. I proposed the surtax on people whose families had at least $1 million in income, because they're the people who benefited from Bush's economic policies in general. All right, second question is, taxpayers provide all of these, I guess, quote-unquote, capital injections into these banks. We're talking $350 billion plus more in the next tranche. And people go to these banks, news reporters go and say, tell us what you're doing with this money. And the banks say, oh, well, we thank the public very much for bailing us out, but we don't want to tell you what we're doing with the money. Are you using this money to lend it out to small businesses to create jobs? None of your business. We will do with it as we want to do with it. All right, so my question to you is, why haven't we forced transparency and demanded that these banks lend out the money as they were supposed to do, rather than perhaps use it for bonuses, for mergers, acquisitions, et cetera?
I think as an analytic matter, Senator, it's very difficult to track what happens to a dollar that goes into a very large and complicated institution. A lot of money goes in and a lot of money goes out of these banks. Knowing what was done with a particular dollar is really, I think, an almost unanswerable question. There's also a broader problem, which is that we don't know what would have happened otherwise. So economists talk a lot about the counterfactual situation.
Right.
Without the money, what would have happened?
But don't you think, if I give you come to me and you say, look, you know, I need a lot of help, and I'm saying, okay, I'm a nice guy, we're going to bail you out. Don't I have a right to have, understanding what you said, you telling me, well, look, in general, this is what I'm doing. I know you wanted us to make loans to loosen up capital. Don't you think we have a right to know a little bit more than these banks are telling us?
I think certainly the government can set the conditions that it wants on these injections, and it did set some, of course, as part of the legislation authorizing the TARP. There will, in some cases, be a trade-off between the speed with which actions can be taken and the care with which they're taken. And I think one of the, when the TARP was being debated, of course, there was a great sense of urgency, I think, in the minds of most people watching the financial system. And that may be one reason why more discussion was not made at that time of these issues.
With the exception of our friend Bernie Madoff, who pulled off a remarkable, I mean, it's, again, incomprehensible how you could pull off a $50 billion Ponzi scheme in this day and age without being detected by the SEC. Do you believe that Wall Street leaders engaged in illegal behavior and that some of them should end up behind bars in the coming years?
I think it's very appropriate to prosecute people who've broken laws. I'm not a lawyer. I don't really know securities laws. So I'm not a good judge of what's happened. I think where there was law breaking, it should be addressed.
Well, that goes without saying, but you know, people break the law, we generally try to prosecute them. I think there is an outrage on the part of the people, Mr. Chairman, that is not necessarily perceived here in Congress. The recklessness, the greed, I suspect the illegal behavior of maybe a few hundred, few thousand people has impacted and destroyed the lives of millions of people in this country. And in my view, they have got to be held accountable. And I am concerned that because they are rich and powerful, they don't get the same treatment as the average criminal. But I think we have got to address that issue.
Senator, if I could just interrupt, and it won't come out of your time, just on this issue. I think you're right. I think we will find law breaking. I think we will find criminal wrongdoing. I think people should go to jail. I've written the Attorney General, and I've asked that in every one of these cases where government funds are infused, that there be an investigation and that people be held to account. There have got to be prosecutions of criminal wrongdoing, and it's breathtaking.
It is.
I think we're going to find a lot.
Do you know what the problem is, Mr. Chairman? Is the amount of money is so huge that nobody can get their hands around it. Somebody robs $50,000, $30,000, we understand the problem. What are we talking about? Trillions of dollars? What is $1 trillion? Nobody in America understands what that is. So the problem is so big that I think we have not focused, as the chairman said, on potential illegal behavior and what we're going to do to these people.